Hey guys, back with another video. Today we're going back to the phone so that way I can get you guys some high quality footage of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to be talking to you guys about Intel ES processors or engineering sample processors, what they are, what they do, and what they're for. Then I'm going to be talking about the system that I'm putting the one I have into, and then I'll be going back through some Intel history with you guys. So stay tuned. Alright guys, this is my Core 2 Quad Q9100. It is a Penryn processor running the 45 nanometer process. It is 4 cores at 2.26 gigahertz with 12 megabytes of L2 cache and a bus speed of 1066 megahertz. And you can see, maybe if we're lucky, there right up at the top you'll see ES underneath the 06. That stands for engineering sample. Now, normally written right there would have been the processor's model number, each processor having its own, different one. This is a mobile processor, PGA 478. There were quite a lot of different processors, actually, that could run in this socket, but it was whether or not your system had the resources to run the processor. The system I'm putting it in technically does not. It is an HP 6910P, and it originally ran a T7500. Let me pull this out for you. So this is my HP 6910P that this processor was originally supposed to go into. It has no bezel on it right now because I am fixing it. It has no screen bezel on it right now because I'm fixing it. I took this RAM stick out for us already because the modification that I had to do to this system to make this processor work is actually right under this piece of tape. Let me see if I can open this up here. Okay, now, I don't know if you can see this tape here, not the tape, the wire. There's a very, very small wire right there, and that is shorting a resistor pad to another resistor, and I will pull up the schematic on the screen. But what that does is it makes Northbridge, which would be this piece here. Northbridge is your what is it called? Your chipset, and on this system it's also the graphics. It tricks Northbridge into thinking that the system is running at its rated clock speed, even though it's not. Now, the processor I currently have in this system is upgraded from what was originally in it. It's no longer a T7500, it's actually a P8400. And it runs really great, but it's 2 cores, and I would rather have 4. So that's where this processor comes into play. This processor was supposed to go into this system, but I ran into an issue where once in the system and booting, it would either 1, not turn the display on, or 2, it would just never boot into the operating system. It would just kind of freeze there. So Intel engineering sample processors were lended from Intel to other companies. Other companies as like OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, ODMs, original device manufacturers, and ISVs, independent software vendors. These were to be used in the product design cycle, and they are the sole property of Intel, under Intel Confidential, and they were under non-disclosure. They were loaned to these companies, never supposed to leave the company's site, but it happens, whether it's from an employee stealing them, or it gets trashed and somebody takes them out of the trash and sells them. Some other things to note if you've gotten yourself an engineering sample processor from Intel: don't return it, don't give it back to Intel, because they're going to say thanks, and then that'll be the last time you ever hear from them. They aren't going to replace it because the property was originally theirs, so why would they replace it? They, of course, don't provide support for it, no warranty, no anything like that. So now we're going to move a little bit into Intel history and how they became one of the biggest names in processor making history. So in case you didn't know, a CPU, or what CPU stands for, CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, and it performs calculations and makes logical comparisons by moving data at up to billions of times per second. So in 1968, the first working integrated circuit was developed by Robert Noyce of Fairchild Semiconductor and Jack Kilby of Texas Instruments. The first IC was demonstrated on September 12th of 1958, and it was Jeffrey Dummer that was credited with the first person to conceptualize and build a prototype of an integrated circuit. On April 19th of 1965, Gordon Moore made an observation about integrated circuits, and this became known as Moore's Law. It wasn't until 1968 that Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce founded the Intel Corporation. Intel, with the help of Ted Hoff, introduced the world's first microprocessor, the Intel 4004, on November 15th of 1971. The Intel 4004 had 2,300 transistors. It performed 60,000 operations per second, and it addressed 640 bytes of memory. It cost $200 at the time. In 1972, Intel came out with the 8008. It was the first 8-bit processor, and compared to the 2,300 transistors in the 4004, it was almost double with 3,500 transistors, and nearly double the original clock speed. In 1974, Intel launched the 8080, and it was considered by many to be the first truly general-purpose microprocessor, as the 4004 and 8008 needed support chips to run. The 8080 could run completely on its own. So the CPU generations for Intel can be a little bit weird, a little bit confusing, especially if you only look at the names. You had Nehalem. These are desktop processors that I'm going to be going through in this line. Mobile processors had a little bit of different names. These are also Intel Core processors. I'm looking over the Core 2 Quads, the Core Duos, the Core Solos, the Pentiums, the Celerons. I'm looking over these because while they are still used today, as you can see in the system that I had, they're not as common, and they're not going to be what you see every single day when you say, hey, Intel. It's not going to be the first thing that comes to your mind. Your first generation Intel Core processors will be under the name Nehalem, brought out in 2008. You have Sandy Bridge for second gen in 2011. You have Ivy Bridge for third generation in 2012. You have Haswell for fourth generation in 2013. Broadwell for fifth generation in 2014. Skylake for sixth generation in 2015. Then you have Kaby Lake, which is 7th generation, in 2016. Now this is where it can get a little bit confusing. You have Kaby Lake R and Coffee Lake for 8th generation processors, that's 2017. Then you have Coffee Lake Refresh for 9th generation, that's 2017. Then you have Comet Lake and Ice Lake for 10th generation processors, being 2019. Tiger Lake and Rocket Lake for 11th generation processors, being 2021, and Alder Lake for 12th generation Intel processors, also 2021. Now, another thing you will have is Raptor Lake for 13th generation processors, 2022, and then Meteor Lake for the 14th generation processors, which is 2023. Intel CPUs have a lot of different suffixes, and the most common ones are going to be your K for an unlock multiplier, KS is Special Edition, that comes with an unlock multiplier. But in line, you have G1 through G7, and this started in the 11th generation processors, especially the ones that you see in your mobile systems, and this is for the graphics level, G7 being the best, of course. E stands for embedded, so embedded systems, something similar to a Raspberry Pi, your single board computers. F means it requires discrete graphics, as in a GPU or graphics processing unit. G means it includes discrete graphics on the package being the die that is on the wafer. H is high performance for mobile. HK is high performance with an unlocked multiplier for mobile. HQ is high performance quad core. K is, like I said, unlocked. S is special edition. T is power optimized. U is power efficient for mobile. Y is power efficient, extremely power efficient for mobile. X or XE is unlocked multiplier, and it is also the highest end processor. So if there's any processor with XE on it, that's the highest end processor you'll get. And then if there's a B on it, that means ball grid array, which you'll see on every single one of today's mobile systems, unless you've got a weird one which has a desktop processor in it. That's Alienware on one of them. I believe that was a 9th gen processor that they did that on. Alright, that is all I have for Intel history for you today. If you liked the video, let me know in the comments. If any of you guys notice anything that I may have gotten wrong, or that you think I missed, leave it in the comments. I would love to know. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the correct information.